them, and I'll sort through those.
You have to come up here and sit.
I will.
Here's the first question. Yeah, come on up, Helen. Yeah, she doesn't want to be the first one.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting.
Well, the women are here.
Yes, the women are here. All right, come on, Matt. Actually, the first question is here, so come on.
You ask them.
No, you don't have
Look how much there is.
I know, but I have all these too. All right, so here's what we did. We went through the questions that we had already. We tried to put them in as far as the same theme or the same type of questions. We don't have time to go through all the questions, but we'll try to get through as many as we can, and Matt's going to pick up some of the other questions here. So, okay, pretty enriching today, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so the first question actually is going to start with Dr. Matt here. You talked about earlier with the community transformation, and the question is, does your model include other gatekeepers outside the church?
Yes. Yes, we are. We're starting with church as a foundational point of the model, since people do go there first, but then we're also incorporating school districts and larger businesses, because what we want, basically the goal is to make mental health care accessible wherever you are. That's kind of the thought. So wherever you normally are, if you're at school, if you're at work, if you're at your faith community, wherever you are, that's where you can access the system. So yes, we will bring, in the 4th and 5th year, we'll bring larger businesses and school districts on board.
Okay, so I just told you that we have a toolkit, and at our conference, we had, because we think there are 3 legs of the stool, that it really does take, there's a role for the government, and we need to encourage advocacy there. There's some laws that need to change. We think that business has a role. We think the private sector, we have a collaboration in our county between us and the local children's hospital, which had not a single pediatric inpatient psychiatric bed in a county of 3 million people. And so because of our challenge and our push, they're now doing a large expansion to now have pediatric inpatient beds in Orange County. So there is a role for that kind of collaboration in the community and the faith community. For us, because our largest platform is in the faith community, that's where we've put the majority of our efforts. But it really will take all of the aspects, all the players in society to really get traction on making things better for people with mental illness in the U.S.
Okay. All right, so the next question, this is Dr. Harris, and maybe Kay, you can respond to this as well. How do we start helping our pastors understand grief in a better way?
Yes. How was that? Well, let me affirm the question, first of all. I mean, I think it's an important one. I think we've got to be transparent with our pastors, that we've got to give our pastors the opportunity to respond by being honest with them about what we're dealing with. I think we've got to express what we need and know that and say to them, if you need us to help resource you, we can do that. The School of Social Work, the Grace Alliance, their Case Toolbox, there are lots of resources available for people. You all are in a position now where you know more about the resources that are available. So if we will speak to our pastors and say, this is a need, it's important to us, and if you haven't had that preparation and training and you're not certain what to do, there are resources available and we can help connect you with those.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing is pastors are in a very difficult position for many reasons, but one of them is that most of them feel very overwhelmed by what's on their plates. So, and when it comes to mental health issues, many of them feel like they're in over their heads, and many of them are. So when they hear, someone coming to them saying the church needs to do more for this, it's like, you know, I cannot have one more thing on my plate, or it feels like the weight of the world on them. So I think the more we can, as people who understand, who've been there, who ourselves are equipped to do ministry in this area, the more we can come to them and offer what we have, rather than coming to them and asking them to add one more thing to their plates. I think it's a much more productive way to approach it, and say, you know, we've got something to give. Will you come alongside, or you know, put your support behind us so that we can do this ministry within the church?
Yeah, I just add to that we took a survey of our pastoral care. Can you guys see us? I didn't think so. Okay.
You can
All
stand
right.
up.
So we took a survey in our pastoral care team asking for them to kind of evaluate how much of their pastoral care duties were probably related in some way to mental illness. And we have a very mental health aware congregation. And so we came up with like 23%, and that was a conservative estimate, of the pastoral care calls that come in every day are in some way related to mental illness. And I think that what we're looking for is to be able to help pastors. We want to reframe it, because the fact is pastors are dealing with people living with mental illness every single day. They have the idea that this is one more thing to add to their plate, but what we want to reframe is to say, we want to help you do better what you're already doing. You are already counseling people who are living with mental, you may not recognize it, they may not know it, but you are dealing with people who have mental illness as a part of their story, a part of the situation that they're bringing to you. So far from asking you to add anything, we want to equip you to do what you are already doing in a much better way. That puts it in a positive light for them.
Yes, excellent. Okay, maybe, Amy, would you lead out on this question here? How should I come out with my mental illness?
Yeah, great question. I think, first of all, let me just affirm that it is important to be open about this as much as you can, not only for your own health, for your own sake, but also for the sake of the people who love you, and for the sake of other people who need to hear your story, because it's their story too. So the more we share our stories, the more we break down that sense of shame and stigma. So it is important to, you know, quote unquote, come out. And that's what it can feel like. I mean, it's a big deal to start talking about this experience, because there's so much shame and so much hiding. For me, you know, I didn't start talking openly about my family's experience until just a few years ago. And I'm in my early 40s now. So it took a long time for me to come to this point, for me to actually write about it, to get up on stage and talk about it. I mean, this is a very recent thing in my life, and it's because I've done a ton of healing around this. But it's also because, like, my approach was without recognizing that I was taking an approach, was beginning to share with people who felt really safe. You know, just because I did try opening up to a couple people who didn't have compassionate responses. It was very painful. But some of the people I opened up to did respond to me compassionately, and the next time I saw them, treated me like they still liked me, which felt huge. So taking those baby steps of opening up to very safe people, and sharing, you know, a little bit, and then maybe you share a little bit more, and you know, as you experience support from the people around you, you gain more courage to share more widely and more openly. And it's amazing how, when you begin to tell your story, I promise you, people will come to you with their stories, and it will completely change the way you feel about this experience. You are surrounded by other people who have similar experiences, and you don't know it until you start telling your own story.
Oh, no. Well, Helen, you can share
Yeah,
on that. Yeah.
I want to really reinforce the importance of evaluating who it's safe to come out to initially, because if you have a bad experience, it can be really tough to do it again. But you have some idea about who is safe, and choose those people. I think also if you can start support groups in your church and support groups in your organization or wherever you find yourself, that in group there's support, because there are lots of people who are sort of in the same boat, and that validation and that comfort level makes a big difference, and then you're not the only one coming out. Okay,
on this question here, maybe you can lead on this. How do I discuss or help someone with mental illness and they don't want any help?
Oh, that is the $64,000 question, because when I talk to families, as I do all the time now, that comes up probably 3/4 of the time. I love somebody who does not either want help or doesn't recognize that they are ill. And there's this great term that I always massacre when I try to say it. Anasagnosia. Yes, anasagnosia. Thank you. It's like a third of the people with depression and a half of the people with bipolar. It's a condition of the brain that is there because of the mental illness that makes them not truly not understand that they are ill. Frequently, we think people who are don't say they're not ill, that they're resistant, that they're stubborn, that they're in denial, when frequently there's part of the mental illness that has actually affected their brain to the place that they don't understand that they are ill. They truly don't get it. And so when your loved one, particularly in schizophrenia, and they say, why would I take medication? There's nothing wrong with me. And you're always trying to get me to do this or that, and they truly don't understand. So at least be aware that that is out there, and it will change your perspective. There's a great book that has been really helpful. It's called I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help, by Amador, A-M-A-D-O-R. And he has this great approach to helping people who don't understand that they are ill, how you can become an ally of your loved one rather than an adversary. So I would first of all start with that. I mean, it's a long answer, but sometimes to come alongside somebody and try to help them, what are the goals for your life? What is it you would like to achieve? Okay, maybe you're not ill. Maybe you're not ill. Go ahead and just play the game. Maybe you're not ill. Maybe it's all me. So, but things don't seem to be working real well in your life. How could you think we could work together to help you accomplish what it is that you would like to accomplish for your life? And in that process, hopefully over time, as they begin to trust that you are not badgering them with how ill they are, how broken they are, how messed up they are, how they need this and that, and they don't see it, they don't get it, then you can come alongside as an ally. That's
great.
right there.
Anybody else on that one?
Add one thing, or maybe more, is that you don't have to control this person. You don't have to fix this person. You don't have to get them to do what you want them to do, although you may want to. But you also don't have to go along with their story. So if they believe they're perfectly normal, if they believe everybody else is wrong, it's everybody else who's messed up, whatever, they don't need to take medication, whatever story they're telling themselves, regardless of whether they're, just in denial or whether they actually really have no insight into their illness. You don't have to believe that story, and you don't have to pretend like you believe that story. So there can be a balance, in that middle ground between, being confrontive and being compliant with their story. You can just decide that, you're going to believe your own story. You're going to believe what you see and what you know they need. And that may make it more difficult to live with that person, but it'll make it, you'll be a lot healthier person for it. And ultimately, it may serve to help them because one of the things that they probably need is strong boundaries and is to run into those boundaries in the people around them, which can help people understand, okay, there is something in my life that is not working properly. So you can serve to help them even in that sense, in choosing to be a healthy person and choosing not to believe their story.
All right, now for our doctors. Okay, does depression lead to anxiety or vice versa?
That it really doesn't. Really isn't either of those. I always like to say depression, and anxiety are kind of ugly step twins of one another. I mean, they go hand in hand. I mean, it's rare that you come across somebody who has depression that doesn't also struggle with significant anxiety, and the other way around also. So someone diagnosed with OCD will oftentimes struggle with a lot of depression, PTSD, a lot of depression. People with depression often have comorbid, co-occurring anxiety disorders. I mean, many of the medications that we use to treat depression are also used to treat anxiety disorders. So they go hand in hand. And a lot of times you don't realize that you have two different things going on because they kind of look the same. So you want to make sure that you talk to your physician and your therapist about both. Do you want me to try to answer some of these?
Well, did you have anything to add?
No, well said. I mean, that's right. It's a chicken and egg question, so I'm not sure it matters.
Right, yes.
I mean, just in terms of, you got to deal with what people are presenting to you, and
Okay.
that's right.
Well, and you also mentioned, you were talking about ADD and ADHD, and the question is, what is the percentage of ADD or ADHD that are later diagnosed as anxiety or depression? Do you have any statistics with those?
Yeah, I don't. The more likely, what we see is ADHD sort of comorbid a lot with oppositional defiant disorder and conduct disorders, and so we see sometimes more issues with that later on. I think the big problem with ADHD is that a lot of things can look like ADHD, and so until we have a definitive physiological way to identify ADHD, then it's going to be tougher to differentiate and distinguish.
Right.
Yeah.
And Matt, ECT, is it good?
Electroconvulsive therapy, yes, it can be very effective, particularly for people who are medication non-responsive. It is used a lot more today as more of a first or a frontline treatment of depression. My personal opinion is I would not do that. I would try a regimen of medications before I did ECT. It does have some memory issues, although it can be extremely effective. It's being used also now for people with bipolar disorder, but you have to understand that that's only going to deal with the mood aspect, the depressive mood aspect. It won't deal with the mania. It also is being used with people with OCD. No, it's a safe procedure. You can have some memory issues. It's a scary procedure. I mean, who wants to have electric current run through their head? And if you ask your doctor how it works, it is not uncommon for them to give you the terrible, it's kind of like turning your computer off and turning it back on, which is not really how I want my medical care described. So, and no, I mean, no joke. I've actually had clients that was how it was described to them by their doctor. That's just not real reassuring. So, yes, it is effective. If your loved one has depression and they've been taking medications for a year or two and had no relief, meaning they've been through a whole string of different medications in different classes and they really have not been able, no relief, then ECT is absolutely an option. And another one I would say, to add on to that, a new FDA-approved treatment is transcranial magnetic stimulation of the prefrontal cortex. And that can be done right in the office. It's 2 large magnets that are put over the frontal cortex. You sit there, you can have a conversation. It's kind of like ECT with magnets, but it's not as invasive. And it has been FDA-approved. Clinical trials do show that it is effective for minimizing depressive symptoms. So you might check into that also.
Okay. I have 2 more questions, and then we can get through your list there. Kay, do you advocate within the LGBT community as well? We need you.
Absolutely. As I said, mental illness is in no respecter of persons. It is a human, it's part of our brokenness as human beings. And there is the stigma that folks in the LGBT community experience is profound and can get in the way of accessing services and telling people, if it's hard enough to tell, anything about your life, and then to talk about mental illness as well, that can just compound a really difficult situation. So absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts?
Well, I'd just say one of the studies we're conducting right now are interviews with people who self-identify as Christian and as LGBT. And we've talked with a number of folks who've said that they've been told in their churches and other places that those are mutually exclusive categories. And the stories are full of pain and full of stigma and full of isolation. And probably the saddest thing that I've heard are the people who've said, I couldn't figure out how to change my sexuality, and so I changed my religion, or I changed my Christianity, or I walked away from God and the church. And that's very, very painful. I think we've got to be willing to love people, receive people, and understand that the gospel is full enough for all people, and stop marginalizing folks.
Okay, and you can start off on this one because I think this will get some passion here going, okay? So how do you respond to comments like depression and suicide is a spiritual problem, or you just enjoy being depressed?
Anybody enjoy being depressed? I'm still looking for that person. I've heard that.
Yes, I know. That's,
Anybody like being really sad all the time? I mean, really. I mean, that's seriously. I mean, but I've had people tell me that exact same thing.
yeah, it's a great question.
Well, no, I get mad, okay? Because I also have a very similar question here on my wife's family thinks she has a demon instead of bipolar disorder, so it's very similar. You know, all I would say is, a couple of things. One is, you know, if you, certainly I believe in the demonic, okay? I do, absolutely. And I believe in a personification of evil, Lucifer, the devil. I believe that he's out to thwart the people of God, okay? And have a PhD in neuroscience, so beat that, okay? So, but the thing is that, you know, we don't say that to people that have cancer. You know, we don't, you know, now in the Bible, I mean, the demonic causes people to have all kinds of illnesses, boils, and I mean, all kinds of physical ailments. God causes people to have rashes and all kind of terrible, but we never say that to people who have cancer. I mean, have you ever had anybody say, I have cancer, and you go, wow, that's demonic, or that's what you thought? Could it be demonic? Sure, it could be. Do you pray for them against the demonic? Pray for me against the demonic. But if you pray for someone against the demonic, I don't mean in some kind of exorcistic, kind of like the movie or something, just like a Christian prays for another Christian. Why not do that for someone who has a mental health problem? And then also pursue, and then, you know, God provides medication, he provides physicians. I mean, Luke wrote, he was a physician. I mean, he wrote 2 of the books of the Bible. I mean, I don't see anybody saying there was anything wrong with being a physician. So I think that you know, that's a problem that we have. And it's really, it's an age-old problem. It's existed since the beginning of the church, in the early monastic hospitals where all of medical care began. People that had what were thought of as physical illnesses, like broken legs and things like that, they were treated humanely and cared for and nursed back to health. And people that were mad, people that had mental illness, they were punished in those hospitals because they were thought to have a spiritual deficiency. And we've brought that right into modern times. And so with the demon here, I don't believe, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ and you've been born again, I don't believe you can have a demon. I think a demon can oppress you, but I don't think you can be possessed. I don't see how that's possible. So, you know, if it's just, you know, that's an easy cop-out to say to somebody. It's a self-righteous, you know, that statement is a self-righteous. I mean, who would want to be depressed? Like, I've never met anybody, I mean, mentally ill people who I deal with constantly on a daily basis, and Joe can tell you this too, because we worked together for a long time, I have never seen people so desperately pursuing God. And, you know, so, you know, in essence, what you're saying is somehow they're broken, so God doesn't want to have anything to do with them, and that just doesn't sound like what's described there. So, I mean, I would say this. I mean, people are going to believe what they believe. If you want to believe that these things are spiritual, then please have at least consistent theology and believe that all things are, you know, and I do believe all things have a spiritual base, but believe all illness is spiritual and pursue it spiritually. You know, our research shows that a high percentage of people that are told those types of things are also told by their churches and pastors that they should stop taking psychiatric medication. But those same churches also tell them that, oh yeah, it's fine to go to the doctor for your diabetes or whatever. That they're just very different types of things. And they're not. I mean, I think you've got an organ in your head. It's like I often tell Joseph Hervey says before, I could hit you in the head with a hammer enough times that I could change your behavior. And that would be because I would damage the organ inside your head. And no one in here would say that that was spiritual. They would say that's a traumatic brain injury. Well, you can be born with abnormalities in your brain. You can acquire abnormalities through trauma. These things can happen. We have to be smarter than that. We have to be smarter than that.
So if someone comes to you and they've had this experience that they've been told that you just like being depressed, you're just holding on to it, you're codependent with depression, or all these things, or you're demonic, what would be your message to them? How would you comfort them?
Well, gosh.
She would not get mad like I do.
Oh, no,
She's so
I
much
would.
nicer than
No,
I am.
I was trying to think of nice ways to say things.
I'm not nice.
Yeah, I think that there's been a misunderstanding of what mental illness is through the the centuries, and as Matt alluded to. And I think that pastors and church leaders have misunderstood the nature of mental illness, and so when it gets down to it, then people are told, yeah, and that's the same people would also tell you to pray harder, memorize more scripture, confess more sin, go to more Bible studies, et cetera, and which is just nonsense. As everything that Matt said, I heartily concur with. I think I would just to understand that we are whole beings, that there's teaching that needs to be out there, that we are whole beings, we are body and we are mind and we are soul, and things can get broken at every level within us. Something can happen spiritually, and it's going to affect you physically and emotionally. Something can happen to you emotionally. It's going to affect you spiritually and physically. And to understand, a really good friend of mine, Dr. Eric Johnson, explained to me about how that when things get broken on every level, it can affect your whole life. And conversely, when there is healing in one area, it can also have a positive benefit in the other aspects of your life. We are a whole, I guess is what I'm saying. And so when people talk to me about mental illness, I always try to encourage them to address it on every single level. Start with a physical. Get a complete physical. I always tell people, start with a complete physical. Have blood tests. There can be medical conditions that are causing depression, and that things that are easily, quote, fixable, that aren't necessarily mental illness. There could be a medication that's interacting. Get a complete physical. And then I say, make sure that you are working spiritually, because in every situation of your life, you need to grow closer to God. These are hard times. Grow spiritually. Do what you can to grow spiritually. Relationally, you may have some broken places in relationships. What can you do to mend them? Maybe you need therapy. There's some things. So we attack it on every single level. There's not any one level. Taking a pill isn't going to fix everything. Praying isn't going to fix everything. But in combination, there can be traction, there can be movement toward health in us as whole beings.
Right. No, absolutely. And I have a couple here that we have like so many questions up here, we're never going to get to all of them, so I just want to apologize for that. This is a question about addictions and mental illness, and basically wants to know the percentages. And it's probably close to low to mid 40% of people that have a substance use or alcohol problem also have a co-occurring mental illness. Okay, so in my work, if somebody comes to me with an addiction, I just assume they have a mental health problem in addition to that until I can figure out that they don't. So what you're looking at is probably somebody who's either adopted a very negative coping strategy to deal with their pain, or someone who is self-medicating to try to minimize their symptoms, okay? And so do realize that a lot of people that are addicts just, it's not, they can't just say no, like Nancy Reagan suggested to us to do. It's not that simple. You could have a serious underlying mental health problem, and people with bipolar disorder are notorious for having substance use problems on top of that. And these two questions that kind of go together. One wants to know what kind of legislation is needed to alter mental health treatment, and the other one is in relationship to insurance companies, so those kind of go together. I would say there's a couple of things that are really needed. Number one, we desperately need some kind of rider for HIPAA. HIPAA was put into place in 1996. It was mostly put in place because of AIDS and because of cancer, and that was to protect you so that nobody at your insurance company, no one at your business would find out about your health problems and then fire you or stigmatize you or mark you. But no one ever gave any thought to what that was going to do to people with mental illness, because what it now does is all the things we've talked about today, which is the person that's mentally ill now is responsible for all their care. They can't talk to you if you're the loved one, if the person is of age. And so we need some kind of rider that takes mental health into account and kind of separates it from the other illnesses. And for the insurance companies, I'll just say this, and I'll try to say this as non-political as I can, but the thing is that, we have to get away from all this, I was going to say, but I won't, so that we see on television with our politicians. This is killing people, okay? I mean, people are dying. So this like, no health care, people need to just get a job so they can people are dying out there every day, okay? So we need to have a real conversation about health care, generally health care, and we need to, in that conversation, talk about mental health care. Just this year, President Obama signed into effect a bill that had originally been started during the Bush administration to equate mental health care payments and non-mental health care payments, because insurance companies will not pay as much for mental health care as they do for other types of care. That went into effect this year and has had almost no effect because immediately insurance companies found loopholes and ways to get around it, okay? So the thing is that insurance company, there's nothing wrong with making money. I'm not saying that. There's nothing wrong with being an insurance company, and they have to make money. That's what they do. But the reality is that most of the people I deal with cannot afford mental health care, and their insurances don't cover enough of it for them to get better, and that's costing us billions of dollars and millions of lives. And we have to have a real conversation where we actually sit down, Democrats, Republicans, whatever you call yourself, and say, look, people are suffering, and we should be caring for one another. And again, I think that's where the church can really step up and say, it isn't a political issue, it's a care issue. You know, now granted, somebody has to pay for it, absolutely. I'm happy to pay taxes so that you can have mental health care. I'm happy to do that. You always hear that. People always say stuff like that, like if I knew what my money was, they were using my money the right way, I would be happy to pay my taxes if I knew someone was getting care from it. So we've got to, really have to have a real conversation that isn't all this political rhetoric. Now Helen's going to set me straight.
Well, the truth is we are paying for it.
Yes.
We're paying for it in the ER, and we're paying for it in the prison system and in the county jails. And Amy explained that to us this morning. I mean, and we're paying for it at the highest level of cost with the poorest results. We can do better.
I mean, in Texas, like Amy said, in Texas, the largest psychiatric facilities is the Harris County Jail. That's right. There is no close second. There's no close second. And Texas is arguably the worst state in mental health care delivery. We spend the most money of any state, and we provide the least amount of care. So we have just cut all of our community-based funding, and we are going to try to go back to institutions is what we're going to try to do. But they're not building any new institutions. So we're going to try to use the few state hospitals we have right now to cover this enormous burden that we already can't meet. And we're the state that everybody looks to as the one who did great in the economic kind of recession, and we're doing so great. But again, they're like the hidden ones that nobody talks about. They're just a bunch of drunks and homeless people that just need to get a job. And criminals, right, because they're all in jail. So if you really looked at it, it's frightening to see what we're doing. I mean, this is supposed to be a moral society, so it's really disturbing. I go to Libya. Joe and I worked in Libya for a while with mental health care and in Africa. I mean, over there, it's not shocking if I tell you that, people are brutalized and in some countries even killed for being mentally ill because they're looked at as bad omens and things like that. You would go, oh, well, I don't know that we're doing much better, frankly.
Okay, so I want to add to that. I mentioned I'm going to tell you books because I think there's so much out there. You need to read the book that's called American Psychosis. American Psychosis, How the Federal Government Destroyed the Mental Illness System in the United States, by E. Fuller Torrey. He's a psychiatrist, and you won't agree with everything, but I promise you it will make you mad. And all the years and it's not political, so it's not a political thing. It's a factual recounting of what's happened in the United States. And all the years that Matthew was ill, and we had financial resources, and we still couldn't get him connected to the right places. And I walked away going, this thing is so broken. Why is it all so broken? But I couldn't tell you why it was broken. Once I read American Psychosis, I have a much better understanding of why it's broken. And it's broken so badly, I don't quite know how to fix it. But I'm telling you, if you really, really want to understand mental health care in the United States, it's an easy to read book. It's not like you have to have the PhD in brain stuff. It's for lay people like us who can really access
the thing
it.
is money isn't going to fix it. It's not money that we need. That's the thing. Money's good, but we've thrown money at it for years, and that hasn't even changed anything. What we need is we need a change in the way we perceive it and the way we provide the services and care for people. So that's why, for instance, we're very interested in getting faith communities involved. Dr. Massey was very interested in getting primary care physicians. I mean, we have to rethink the system. The system does not work the way it is now. That's not to say there aren't great psychiatrists out there, great therapists, because there are. I refer to people all the time. But those are just individual resources. We have to rethink the system, and it's it's pretty disturbing if you have to deal with it every day. I mean, to see how many people suffer. I mean, as Kay said, I mean, they have resources. I've been working with a family for about 6 months now. It's a 30-year-old schizoaffective disorder daughter who they've been struggling with for years. I mean, I can honestly tell you, this family has so much money that you could never spend it in a lifetime. I mean, they are billionaires, and they have never been able to get care for their daughter effectively. They have unlimited resources. And so, and they just simply, if they can't get care, you just imagine somebody with very limited resources, what they have to do.
All right, great.
Fun, hey, thanks for coming, y'all. So,
Hey, a
it's
round of
good
applause
stuff.
for our speakers
But there is
today.
hope. There is hope.
All right, thank you guys.